SOFE, repeating patterns. Sorry it took so long to get this back to you. It was a combination of being filmed right away and just not finding the time for quite a while to get to the editing. But then it also turned out half the videos I didn't actually record. I thought I was recording, and I wasn't. So I was actually just recording little tiny bits of me breathing just before and after the actual video. So I had to redo half as well. So this is a redo actually, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. This was like a month ago when I did the original. So we'll see what comes up today. So Sophie said repeating patterns was her question or topic. Repeating patterns, well, that's definitely a very predominant phenomenon as a human, or as any living thing actually, because everything here goes in cycles, right? So everything changes, of course, but there's still cycles, there's still repetitive patterns in a cycle before then, a great change, and then it usually starts over. So even when you look at that in nature, that's still, if you pull way back, that's a repeating pattern, right? Spring comes every year, so does winter, etc., etc. Animals are born, animals die. So yeah, this whole thing is patterns, energy patterns, and of course many repeat, and of course there's also changes and drastic shifts. Now, I mean, it's just simply repeating patterns. So, what you had in mind, I don't know. I mean, that could be, I would assume you're probably talking about when we repeat patterns. I'm assuming that's what you were thinking about. Otherwise, I could just philosophize. I don't even know if that's a word, philosophize? Am I going to call it a word? Philosophize all day long here on the phenomenon of repeating patterns. So yeah, we definitely repeat. So why do we repeat? Why don't we start there? Why do we repeat? Well, we like routine. We find comfort in the familiar. That's part of the human condition. We don't like change. I mean, we do like change when we think we can control it, or we're prepared for it, or it's something the kind of change we wanted. So that kind of change, definitely, that's why people even get antsy, and eventually they need to change something. So we do like change, but only in very limited conditional ways. For the most part, though, we don't like the unknown. We're afraid of the unknown. And many a video I've alluded to the fact that for me it definitely is a clear connection between all the things, the fears that drive mankind. If you really dwindle them down, they all come down to, they're all more superficial in the sense that there's a deeper fear. If you keep following the map, every single fear, no matter what it is, when you pinpoint it, if you look a little deeper, you'll see it all points to a core fear. So that all fears have in common. And so when you point to the core fear, then that shows us what man's core fear is, and that is fear of the unknown. And it makes sense, because as we live in this holographic, fantastical funhouse in these shells, living this dualic type of struggle of being connected and aware and being of source, while at the same time having a mind that has thoughts, that is of great value and power to us, but also causes us great suffering. So we are afraid of the unknown, or at least we resist change. Let's just dial it down a few notches. Back to repeating patterns. So yeah, we do that. We resist change. We want the familiar. Sometimes we hide in the familiar. Sometimes we also see people that are living, at least from our point of view, don't even seem like they're barely living at all. They're not happy. They're just, and everything's about their comfort and their survival and their safety and their, and their regiments and, having certain things and having a job and having a little apartment and having a car and having this and having that and just living a very and being quite bored quite at the time as well, and quite involved and quite obsessed almost with a lot of their own routines, which is fine. But I'm set. We're all here to do whatever we want to do. There's no rules here, so there's no right or wrong. But we do see the ones that I'm speaking of. We quite see there's, they're not vibrating very high. They're certainly not reaching for their dreams or anything like that. And we would hope at some point they would do that, because we're in magic land. But either way, we can see why they do it, though, because we all do it to an extent, and those are just people that are more to an extreme. But we follow routines because it gives us comfort. Because in a big world, this overwhelming experience, everything's unknown. I mean, we don't know if you're going to walk out the house and get clobbered by a bus or someone, you could lose your job tomorrow, a hurricane could come in, your husband or wife could suddenly leave you, your daughter could suddenly drop out of school. We don't know what's going to happen. You could go to the supermarket, some person out of nowhere might start screaming at you for no reason. Who knows? I mean, those are all more negative things. There's also all these exciting things about going out, You can meet a new person, hear new jokes, see something lovely, There's all these other things, wonderful unknowns too, but we definitely step out into a world of unknowns. And so it's overwhelming, and so, yeah, we tend to find, just to try to level ourselves, some people call it balance, but really it's a lot of it's repeating patterns and setting routines. So that's one. I'm kind of going in layers here of repeating patterns because, again, it's just a very general, it could be anything here. But again, I think you're more probably talking about, if I was to guess, you might, so there's that aspect. I don't know if that interested you or entertained you or whatnot. But you're probably more talking about when we repeat patterns, and you probably more mean in a way that's not good for you. I'm thinking that's what you might be getting at. So yeah, sometimes we repeat patterns to the point where we almost feel stuck, or we're not actually going anywhere. It does happen. I certainly experienced that myself. And then the universe usually finds a way to shake you out of it. The universe spelled Y-O-U. So let's talk about then the most obvious repeating unhealthy patterns. Let's add an extra word in there, because I think that's what you might be getting at. So when we repeat unhealthy patterns, it's the familiar again. It often is a way of hiding as well, going in circles, kind of dodging the point, which is why arguments and fights can go on forever. It's also dodging and avoiding and energy and heat and all this, things get out of control. But essentially, though, why do they go on and on and on and on? It's really two minds not agreeing, but two minds won't open up to another way of looking at something. So they're holding tight. Why are they holding tight to what they're saying or what they're believing? So so when we repeat quote-unquote unhealthy patterns, it's a way of hiding, in a sense, avoiding. It can be a lot of things. A lot of times, too, I would say, for the most part, another great aspect of it is we repeat unhealthy patterns because we haven't learned our lesson yet. I mean, our mind might say, okay, I get it, right? To itself, right? But if it's not really ready to get the lesson, if it's not really ready to let go, whatever it is, because, the mind can fool ourselves all the time, right? It does. It'll say, oh, I'm so over this, like when you ever talk to somebody and you don't even bring up a subject, and they bring it up, and they start talking about themselves, and they start going on and on and on, and you haven't said a word, you haven't brought up the topic, you haven't added anything, and they're just going on a big long spiel about what sounds like a denial that they don't do a certain thing, or they're not a certain way. You know what I mean? So if somebody comes and go, I'm an honest person. Let's just say, I'm just picking one. Let's just say they just come up, they start going, I'm an honest person. They're going on for 20 minutes about how what awesome, honest person they are, and this and that, and they just hit the word honest, and oh, but I'm honest, and it starts to, smell a little fishy, right? Meaning not that they're not necessarily not an honest person, but it means they're struggling with something that's an issue for them, and so they're kind of emotionally vomiting on you sometimes. But either way, or maybe they're just sharing it with you as a friend. But either way, that could that's one example of how the mind can fool itself and work through certain things. So a lot of times when we keep repeating things, especially when we think we've already learned the lesson, especially like in romance and stuff, you think, oh, the reason, your mind starts coming up with reasons why, this last relationship didn't work out, or maybe it's got a story about them all, why none of them have worked out, and because the guys are always this, or I'm always that, or whatever the story is. But they get so wrapped up in the stories of it all that really, again, there's a lot of hiding and not dealing with what really is going on, and why really things are happening, and what they're really feeling, and what they really need to do for themselves. So until they're ready to make that leap, so even we can say we're ready, and but sometimes we're not. Sometimes we just got to keep doing it and doing it and doing it until until we get it right. So yeah, we're going to repeat patterns. And if it's an unhealthy pattern, if you can easily pinpoint, if it's something more smaller scale, then sure. If you're feeling it and you're ready and you're recognizing it's a repeat pattern that doesn't work for you, then chop it off. We do that all the time. I'm doing a few of myself right now. And I'm always removing things that don't serve me and simplifying life. That's part of our growth too. As you get older, even if you remember your old folks or your grandparents, the tenor in life gets more simple, and you need less, and you want less, and, your houses start to empty out, usually, not always, but you have less things, and you start having less interest in less things, of having, doing a million things. You don't need a million friends anymore, one or two will do. Those kind of things. We just naturally simplify. And simplifying is removing things, and removing things that don't work for us is really changing a pattern, right? Changing a repeating pattern that didn't work. So yeah, I encourage you, if you can easily pinpoint it and you feel you're ready, keep removing things that don't work for you, and thus changing the patterns. That's really what changing it. And if you find you're struggling, like, I don't know really, because again, this is just two words put together with no explanation. So not that you needed to, but I'm just saying, I'm half guessing of what exactly you're getting at here, or what you might be thinking of. So repeating patterns, if it's a big issue for you, if you say really feel stuck and anxious about these repeating patterns, then I'd say keep it simple. And if it's a struggle and you feel you really need to break out of them, but it's hard for you, then just change the way you perceive it. Don't perceive it as, oh, I need to stop doing this. Just do something in the opposite instead. You know what I mean? It's kind of a mind trick to yourself, but just change your story to that. Focus less on, I have to stop doing this. Instead, go do something that's the complete opposite, that takes care of that other thing by default. You know what I mean? So yeah, you can do things like that. So if you keep feeling the urge to go to the left, and you just don't know how to break out, and it's causing you a lot of suffering and frustration, and you need something to help you not go left, then it's simple. Just don't focus so much that you're not going to go left. Just do the opposite. Go look to the right and go for it. Step out. Anyways, I should probably wrap that up, because it could probably go on the repeating patterns. There'd be so many layers of that as I said, life is full of repeating patterns. Anyways, hopefully that was helpful for you. Don't beat yourself up if you are repeating. That's normal too. And you'll change when you're ready to change. Love you.